You know, I've been sitting here for a while now, just thinking. There's this weight that settles in your chest when you realize that the hardest lessons in life don't come from strangers or enemies. They come from the people who were supposed to protect you, the people who shared your blood, your childhood, your history. I want to tell you about something that happened to me years ago, something I don't talk about much, because even now, even after all this time, there's still this tenderness to it, like an old wound that never quite healed right. But I think maybe sharing it will help someone out there who's going through their own version of this pain. Because I know you're out there. I know you've felt this too. It was about a decade after I'd made it. You know that moment when you finally break through, when the universe decides to stop testing you quite so hard and things start falling into place? That's where I was. I had work. I had money. I had this life I'd built from nothing but dreams and desperation and a refusal to give up. And I felt proud of that. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I'd done something right. My mother had passed away a few years before this. And that loss, God, that loss carved something out of me that I'm not sure ever grew back. She was complicated. You know, our relationship was complicated. But she was my mother. And when someone like that leaves your world, it doesn't matter how old you are or how successful you've become. You're suddenly a child again, standing in the dark, calling out for someone who can't answer anymore. The house, the family house. It wasn't much, really. Just a small place with weathered siding and a porch that creaked when you walked across it. But it held everything. Every Christmas morning, every scraped knee, every whispered secret in the dark when we were supposed to be sleeping. The walls had absorbed our laughter and our tears, our fights and our reconciliations. That house was the map of who we used to be before life complicated everything. When Mom died, there was no will. Or rather, there was nothing clear, nothing definitive, just some scattered papers and a lot of unspoken assumptions. And my brother, he stepped in, took charge, said he'd handle everything, that I shouldn't worry about it, that family comes first and we'd figure it all out together. I trusted him. Of course I trusted him. He was my brother. We'd grown up in that house together. We'd shared bunk beds and comic books and dreams about who we'd become. We'd made forts out of blankets and convinced ourselves we were brave explorers discovering new worlds. How could I not trust someone who knew me when I still believed in magic? The months went by. I was working constantly, traveling, trying to stay afloat in an industry that chews people up and forgets their names. I'd call sometimes, ask about the house, ask about the estate. He always had an answer, always had a reason why things were taking so long. Legal complications, paperwork. You know how these things go, he'd say. Don't worry about it. I've got it handled. And I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Then one day, I got a call from a neighbor, an old friend of my mother's, someone who'd known us since we were kids running through sprinklers in the summer heat. Her voice was hesitant, careful, like she was walking on broken glass. Johnny, she said, I don't know if this is my place, but, your brother sold the house. The new family moved in last week. I remember standing there with the phone pressed against my ear, and the world just stopped. Not the way it does in movies, where everything freezes dramatically. It was quieter than that, more personal. It was like someone had reached into my chest and gently, almost politely, removed something essential. And I was still standing, still breathing, but I knew immediately that something fundamental had changed. I called him my brother, and at first, he didn't answer. When he finally did, his voice had this defensive edge to it, this tone that told me he'd been expecting this call and had prepared for it, rehearsed it. Maybe. It was the only option, he said. Not hello, not how are you, just straight to the defense. The property taxes were killing us. There were repairs needed. I couldn't maintain it by myself. I made the decision that needed to be made. You sold our mother's house, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Too calm, too quiet, like I was underwater. You sold it without telling me. You're never around, he shot back. You're off making your movies, living your life. Someone had to be practical. Someone had to deal with reality. And then came the words that I'll never forget, the words that changed everything between us forever. I took what was fair, he said. What I deserved for doing all the work. You were always the one who got to leave, who got to chase your dreams. I stayed. I dealt with everything. So yeah, I took the house, and I made the decisions. And that's fair. Fair. That word sat between us like a stone dropped into still water, the ripples spreading out, disturbing everything. I wanted to rage at him. I wanted to scream about betrayal and lies and how you don't measure love in property values. I wanted to tell him that I'd sent money, that I'd tried to help, that distance doesn't equal abandonment. But instead, I just felt this profound sadness settle over me like fog rolling in from the ocean, because I realized something in that moment, something that hurt more than the loss of the house, more than the money, more than any of it. I realized that my brother had been keeping score all those years, while I thought we were family, while I thought we were connected by something deeper than transactions. He'd been tallying things up. He'd been measuring his sacrifices against my successes. He'd been building resentment brick by brick until it became a wall between us that I never even saw going up. The house was gone. I could accept that. It was wood and nails and memories. And memories don't actually live in places anyway. They live in us. We carry them wherever we go. But what I couldn't accept, what still haunts me sometimes in those quiet hours before dawn, was the realization that I'd lost my brother long before I lost the house. Maybe I'd never really had him the way I thought I did. Maybe we'd been living in different stories all along, and I just hadn't realized it until the ending came crashing down. I didn't fight him. I could have. I had lawyers, I had resources. I could have made it ugly and public and painful for everyone involved. But what would that have accomplished? Would it have gotten the house back? Maybe. Would it have repaired what was broken between us? No, never. Some battles, you realize, can only be won by not fighting them. So I let it go. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much to turn my family into a war zone. I let him have the house and the money and whatever story he needed to tell himself to sleep at night. But I couldn't let him have my peace. That I had to find again for myself. The months after that were strange, dark, in a way that had nothing to do with light. I'd go through my days feeling like I was performing life rather than living it, smiling when I was supposed to smile, saying the right things at the right times, but feeling hollow underneath it all. I kept thinking about fairness, about what it means, about who gets to decide it. My brother thought he'd been treated unfairly by life, by circumstance, by the fact that my path had been different from his. And maybe he had been. Maybe his resentment had roots in real pain, real struggle. I'll never know, because he never told me. He just let it build until it calcified into this thing that stood between us, silent and immovable. But here's what I learned slowly, painfully over the years that followed. Fairness isn't something that happens to you. It's not a ledger where the universe keeps track of who suffered more and who deserves what compensation. Life isn't fair. It never has been. Some people are born into privilege and squander it. Others are born with nothing and build empires from their bare hands and stubborn hearts. Some people get sick. Some people lose the ones they love too early. Some people betray you. Some people stand by you. There's no grand accountant in the sky making sure everyone gets exactly what they're owed. The only thing you control is how you respond. The only thing you can choose is what kind of person you become. In the face of unfairness, I could have become bitter. God knows I had the right to. I could have let that betrayal poison every relationship I had after that. I could have started seeing everyone through the lens of suspicion, waiting for them to disappoint me, to prove that trust is just another word for naivety. But what kind of life is that? What kind of existence? To walk through the world with your heart closed, your guard perpetually up, never letting anyone get close enough to hurt you. That's not protection. That's imprisonment. You're just locking yourself in a cell and throwing away the key, calling it safety. So I made a different choice. I chose to grieve what I'd lost, to feel the full weight of that betrayal, and then to set it down and keep walking. Not because I forgave him forgiveness, real forgiveness. That's a complicated thing that doesn't happen overnight. But because carrying that anger was like drinking something bitter and expecting him to feel the effects. I had to learn how to define family differently, not by blood, not by obligation, not by shared history alone, but by who shows up, who tells you the truth even when it's hard, who celebrates your victories without keeping score, who holds your hand in the dark times without asking what's in it for them. I found that family in unexpected places, in friends who became brothers in all the ways that matter, in people who proved their loyalty not through words but through consistent, quiet action, in connections that weren't given by birth but chosen by recognition, that moment when you look at someone and think, yes, you, I see you, and you see me, and that's enough. The house? Sometimes I drive by the old neighborhood, not often, but sometimes, and I look at where it used to be. They tore it down, actually built something new in its place, and I feel a little ache. But it's not the sharp pain it used to be. It's softer now, more like nostalgia than grief, because I understand something now that I didn't then. Home was never really that building. Home was the feeling I was chasing, the sense of belonging, of being known and accepted, and you can't steal that from someone. You can take their house, you can take their money, you can even take their trust, but you can't take their ability to build something new. My brother and I don't speak anymore. That's the truth of it. We've run into each other a few times over the years at family gatherings, funerals, weddings. We're cordial, polite. We ask about each other's lives with the careful distance of acquaintances. And there's this sadness to it, this recognition of what might have been if we'd made different choices, if he'd been honest with me, if I'd been more present, if circumstances had been different. But I don't regret my decision to walk away from that fight, because fighting him would have meant becoming someone I didn't want to be. It would have meant letting his betrayal determine my character, letting his choices define my path, and I refuse to give anyone that kind of power over me, not even family, especially not family. If you're listening to this and you've been through something similar, if someone you loved has betrayed you, if someone who was supposed to protect you has hurt you, if the people who shared your blood have made you bleed, I want you to hear this. It's not your fault. You didn't cause this by being successful, or by leaving, or by being different, or by any of the reasons they might tell you. People who love you don't keep score. People who truly care about you don't measure their affection against your achievements. Real family, the kind that matters, celebrates your light rather than resenting it. And if they can't do that, if they need to diminish you to feel better about themselves, then they're telling you who they are. Believe them. Don't make excuses for them. Don't twist yourself into knots trying to understand or justify their behavior. Some people are just wounded in ways that make them wound others, and that's sad, truly sad, but it's not your responsibility to heal them at the cost of your own well-being. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to feel betrayed and hurt and confused. Those feelings are valid. They're real. They matter. But don't let them define you. Don't let someone else's inability to love you properly convince you that you're unlovable. Don't let their betrayal make you believe that everyone will betray you. Don't close your heart because someone proved themselves unworthy of it. Instead, use this pain as information. Let it teach you about boundaries, about who deserves your trust and your time and your energy. Let it show you the difference between people who love you for who you are and people who love what you can do for them. Let it guide you toward connections that nourish rather than drain, that add rather than subtract, that build rather than destroy. And here's the most important thing, the thing I wish someone had told me when I was standing in the wreckage of that relationship, trying to make sense of how someone I loved could treat me so carelessly. You don't need their acknowledgement to heal. You don't need their apology to move forward. You don't need them to understand what they did wrong in order for you to be okay. Your healing belongs to you. It's not dependent on their growth or their realization or their remorse. You can forgive them in your heart without them ever asking for forgiveness. You can release the anger without them ever admitting they were wrong. You can build a beautiful life filled with love and meaning and purpose without them ever being part of it. That's the power you have. That's the choice that's always available to you. I think about my mother sometimes, about what she would have wanted. I think she would have been heartbroken to see how things turned out between me and my brother. She always dreamed of us staying close, of being there for each other after she was gone, and we failed her in that, both of us, in different ways. But I also think she would understand. She lived long enough to see how complicated families can be, how love and resentment can get tangled together until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. She knew that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is let them go, let them walk their own path, even if that path leads them away from you. I've built a new definition of home over these years. It's not a place anymore. It's not even a person, really. It's a feeling. It's that moment when you're with people who know your story, all of it. the good parts and the ugly parts, and they choose to stay anyway. It's waking up in the morning and feeling okay with who you see in the mirror, even with all your scars and mistakes and regrets. It's making art that matters to you, telling stories that need to be told, connecting with people in honest, vulnerable ways. It's giving yourself the acceptance you were waiting for someone else to provide. I'm not going to lie to you and say it doesn't hurt anymore. There are still moments, a song on the radio, a smell that reminds me of that old house, a phrase my brother used to say when it all comes rushing back, and I feel that loss all over again. Not just the loss of the house, but the loss of who I thought we were, the family I thought we had. But those moments are fewer now. And when they come, I've learned to sit with them, to acknowledge them without being destroyed by them. Pain is part of love. If you love deeply, you'll grieve deeply. That's not a weakness. That's proof that you had something real, something worth grieving. And maybe that's the final lesson in all of this. The fact that someone can hurt you doesn't diminish what you shared before the hurt. The betrayal doesn't erase the good memories. It complicates them. Yes, it adds layers of pain and confusion to what used to be simple. But those moments of brotherhood, those times when we were young and unbroken and believed we'd always be there for each other, those were real too. Both things can be true at the same time. Life is like that, messy and contradictory and full of things that don't make sense when you try to force them into neat categories of good or bad, right or wrong. People are complicated. Love is complicated. Family is especially complicated because it comes with all this history and expectation and obligation woven through it. But you get to decide what you carry forward and what you set down. You get to choose which stories define you and which ones you release back into the past where they belong. You get to build the life you want, surrounded by the people who deserve to be in it, creating the kind of home you needed all along. So if your brother took the family home and called it fair, if your sister spread lies about you to make herself feel better, if your parents chose one child over another, if the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally turned out to have very specific conditions, I see you, I understand, and I'm telling you, with all the quiet certainty I can muster, you're going to be okay. Not because the pain will disappear, not because they'll suddenly understand what they did wrong, not because life will somehow balance the scales and make everything fair, but because you're stronger than you know, because you have the ability to heal and grow and transform pain into wisdom, because you can take what was meant to break you and use it as the foundation for something beautiful, because home isn't something someone can take from you, it's something you carry inside yourself, and you can rebuild it anywhere, anytime, with anyone who proves themselves worthy of that sacred space. I'm still building mine. Every day, I'm making choices about who I am and who I want to be. I'm choosing kindness over bitterness. I'm choosing openness over cynicism. I'm choosing to believe that most people are doing their best with the tools they have, even when their best falls short of what I need. And I'm choosing to tell you this story, as uncomfortable as it is, as vulnerable as it makes me feel, because I think we need more honesty about these things. We need to talk about how family can fail us, how blood doesn't always mean loyalty, how sometimes the people who were supposed to be safe turn out to be dangerous. But we also need to talk about what comes after, about resilience and reconstruction and the beautiful, stubborn human capacity to keep hoping, keep loving, keep building even after everything falls apart. You are not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by what you do next. So take your time to grieve, feel everything you need to feel, rage if you need to rage, cry if you need to cry. Give yourself permission to be hurt and angry and confused. And then, when you're ready, not before, but when you're truly ready, start building again. Start creating the family you deserve, the home you've always needed, the life that reflects your values rather than your wounds. Because you deserve that. You deserve love that doesn't keep score. You deserve relationships built on honesty and respect and genuine care. You deserve to feel safe and seen and celebrated for exactly who you are. And if the people who were supposed to give you those things couldn't or wouldn't, then your job is to find them somewhere else. Or, even better, to become them, to be the person you needed when you were hurting, to offer the world the kind of love you wish you had received. That's how we heal. That's how we transform pain into purpose. That's how we take what was meant to destroy us and use it to build something stronger, something truer, something that can't be taken away. The family home is gone. My brother is gone in all the ways that matter, but I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still capable of love and joy and connection. And so are you. That's the truth I want to leave you with today. Not that everything will work out perfectly. Not that people who hurt you will suddenly see the light and apologize. Not that fairness will prevail and justice will be served, but that you will survive this. You will grow from this. You will become someone wiser and deeper and more compassionate because of this. And years from now, you'll look back at this moment and realize that the betrayal, as much as it hurt, as much as you wished it hadn't happened, taught you something essential about yourself, about resilience, about what really matters. You'll realize that you didn't need what they took from you. You already had everything you needed inside yourself all along. That's not just hope. That's not just optimism. That's the truth I've learned by living through it, by standing in the ashes and choosing to build again, by losing home and discovering that home was never a place to begin with. It's you. It's always been you, and nobody can take that away. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.